Ah, Excalibur. The frame that many people experience Warframe with for the first time, including myself over 3 years ago. And he is still one of my favorites. Excalibur has everything. He has damage, crowd control, tankiness, toolkit that's really fun. He's just awesome. So let's take a look at him, shall we? So first things first, you can either get Excalibur by choosing him as your starter Warframe, defeating Ambulus in the mission Hades on Pluto, or you can buy him from Teshin for 60,000 standing once you reach the rank of Typhoon in Conclave. And once you either choose him as your starter Warframe, farm him from Ambulus, or buy him from Teshin, you will get a Warframe that's pretty damn beefy and has some solid stats. So he starts off with 100 health and shields, which both go up to 300 at rank 30. He has 225 armor, which makes him pretty damn beefy. He has 100 power, which goes up to 150 at rank 30, and he has sprint speed of 1, which is average. And finally, he has 1D and 1V polarity with a no polarity in the aura slot. The primed version of Excalibur was only available for a short period of time, and it was exclusive to certain Founders packs, so this Warframe is no longer available, which is kind of sad because he does have better stats. He has 25 more armor, coming in at 250, and 2 additional polarity, so he has a D polarity, 2 V polarities, and an additional V polarity in the aura slot. Now Excalibur is a swordsman, and that is reflected in his passive bonuses, so he does 10% more damage and has 10% bonus attack speed with long swords, dual swords, nikanas and rapiers, which stack on top of mods. His abilities are all focused around an Exalted Blade, which is a blade made out of pure energy that he can call upon at any time. And oh boy, are they good. Now before I talk about the abilities, I just want to say that all the augments for Excalibur can be obtained by either reaching the rank of General under the Steel Meridian or the rank of Maxim under the Arbiters of Hexis, and they will cost you 25,000 standing. So Excalibur's first ability is called Slash Dash, where Excalibur dashes between enemies within a cone that is 12 meters long and cuts them down with his Exalted Blade. Each strike will do 250 base damage, which is split into 15% impact, 15% puncture, and 70% slash. The damage is affected by power strength, melee combo counter, and the 10% additive damage bonus from Excalibur's passive. So if you have a longsword, dual sword, nikana, or a rapier, you will do 10% more damage. The damage is not modified by the stats on your melee weapon, however it will be modified by most mods you have on your melee weapon, excluding weapon augments like Justice Blades, class-specific mods like Covert Lethality, or stat-modifying skins like the Manticore. And every time you hit an enemy with Slash Dash, it will add 1 point to the melee combo counter, so you will do more and more damage as you continue casting them. The length of the dash is also affected by power range, so if you have a lot of power range, you can zoom across an entire room. Now Excalibur is also immune while he's casting, and if you hit an enemy with Slash Dash and they don't die, they will suffer a knockdown. Now the way this ability works is when you activate the ability, Excalibur will target enemies within a cone that is based on your power range, and he will simply zigzag between them. And if there are no enemies within that cone, Excalibur will simply dash forward. Now this ability is really cool because it just works every time. It doesn't matter if you're flying or if you're doing something, or if the enemy is flying or doing something, it will work every time. So you can basically just kill everything with this thing. The augment for Slash Dash is called Surging Dash, where at maximum rank, each hit you do with Slash Dash will add 5 combo hits, meaning that you just hit one dude and you get the first combo bonus right away. Now this can be increased even further with more power strength, which leads to ridiculous combo generation, which translates into a lot of bloody damage. This is probably the most efficient yet very effective AoE ability in the entire game. It's incredibly cheap, it does a truck ton of damage, and it's a ton of fun to use. Excalibur's second ability is called Radial Blind, where Excalibur summons and raises his Exalted Blade, releasing an intense flash of light that affects enemies within 25 meters and blinds them for 15 seconds. Now the duration of the blind is of course affected by power duration, and the radius is affected by power range. Now blind enemies are vulnerable to melee finishers, which you perform by just walking up to them and hitting them with your melee weapon, and they are susceptible to stealth damage multipliers, which multiplies your damage by a couple thousand%. For daggers, dual daggers, polearms, and staves, your damage will be multiplied by 1200%. For hammers, your damage will be multiplied by 2,400%, and for all other melee weapons, your damage will be multiplied by 1,600%. And unfortunately, Radial Blind will not go through terrain, so if an enemy is taking cover or is around a corner, he will not be blinded. Now, different enemy units will react differently to being blinded. Melee units, for instance, will run after any audible sound they can hear, and they will try to attack you. Ranged units will be confused, and they will either stand still or they will run for cover, and security cameras will deactivate for a while. Now, most of the time, crowd control abilities like Radial Blind don't have much of an effect on bosses, but Radial Blind does. So Sprag and Venkratel will not attack you unless you attack them first. Lieutenant Lech Krill will not use his Ice Wave attack at all. The Jackal will also not attack you unless you attack him first, and Salad V will not do damage, but Zanuka will do damage to you. Then there is the Sergeant, which will still turn invisible every now and then, but otherwise won't do anything else. The Goose Rack 3 will run into cover after being blinded. Captain Vor and Corrupted War will teleport but not attack. Lynx will not attack you, but his turrets will, so be careful about that. And Council Vahag will not attack you per se. He will still go down the orbital strike drones, and he will alternate between being invincible and not being invincible, but he himself will not attack you. And Radial Blind also has its augment called Radiant Finish, where blinded enemies will take 300% more finisher damage, which is affected by power strength. Now, if you really want to build Excalibur or any other Warframe for finishers, I would recommend using a dagger with covert lethality, which is a mod that one-shots an enemy if you can get a finisher off on them. So this mod is really only useful for people who really like finishers but don't like daggers, which is reasonable. Excalibur's third ability is called Radial Javelin, where Excalibur stabs the ground with his Exalted Blade and summons 12 javelins that will impale enemies within 25 meters. The javelins will pin enemies to walls, and each one will do 1,000 damage. And this damage is distributed evenly between impact, puncture, and slash. Enemies that survive being impaled by the javelins are temporarily stunned, and the damage is affected by power strength, while the number of javelins is not. And of course, the range is affected by power range, as you might expect. Now, while the javelins do not punch through objects or enemies, their striking position will be optimized to ensure a successful hit on a target when they spawn. And this allows javelins to sometimes bypass obstacles like walls or cover, and even Grenier Lancer shields. However, you do need a line of sight on the enemy. It will not hit enemies behind walls. And finally, for regular Excalibur, the javelins look like an ethereal version of the Skana, and for Excalibur Prime, they look like an ethereal version of Skana Prime. The augment for Radial Javelin is called Furious Javelin, where each enemy hit with Radial Javelin will increase Excalibur's melee damage for a short time. And, I never really understood this mod too well, because when you do a Radial Javelin, you usually just kill everything that's around you, so you're not really gonna use this buff. So, as I've said already, I never really understood this. Now, you can increase the duration by adding more power duration, so you can go for longer than 12 seconds, which may be useful. And you can also increase the bonus damage by adding more power strength. And Excalibur's fourth and final ability is called Exalted Blade, where Excalibur will draw his Exalted Blade and wield it as his melee weapon. Now, normal attacks will do 250 base damage within 2 meters, wall attacks will do 1000 base damage, and slide attacks will do 535 base damage, and they will blind enemies within 5 meters for 6 seconds. And finally, aerial and slam attacks will do 500 base damage, and slam attacks will do 50 impact damage within 5 meters on top of that. Now, as you probably already noticed, normal, slide, and aerial attacks will also emit an energy wave in the direction of your aim. The energy waves have the same base damage as the attacks that release them, and they will fly through the air with a speed of 15 meters per second until they dissipate at the maximum distance of 40 meters. The base damage is once again distributed evenly between impact, puncture, and slash, and the attacks and energy waves have a 200% critical damage multiplier with a 15% crit chance and a 10% status chance. Now, the damage of Exalted Blade is affected by basically everything with the exception of weapon augments like Justice Blades and Bright Purity, class-specific mods like Covert Lethality, or stat-modifying skins like the Manticore one. And other than that, basically everything. Power strength, melee combo counter, and the additive bonus from Excalibur's passive work. Base damage modes like Steel Charge, elemental damage like Fever Strike works as well. Physical damage works, faction damage works, channeling works, critical damage, chance, status chance, and even attack speed mods, including Berserker, will affect the attack speed of Exalted Blade. Now, one thing that doesn't work with Exalted Blade is range mods, because the waves are locked at 40 meters. However, power range will affect the blind radius you get from slide attacks. Now, Exalted Blade has an activation cost, which is affected by power efficiency, but it also drains 2.5 energy per second while it's active, which is also affected by power efficiency and also power duration. And finally, Exalted Blade has its own stance with its own combos and multipliers, and I already made a video about it, so if you want to watch it and see what the combos are about, you can click the annotation that's on the screen right now. And a little cherry on top, if you have Exalted Blade active and you do a slash dash, Excalibur's first ability, it will also emit an energy wave. And I almost forgot about two things that are actually pretty damn important. So first of all, the energy waves will not contribute towards your melee counter, and they will punch through all terrain. Now, I chose Excalibur 3 years ago when I first started playing the game, and I still love him. He's still one of my favorite Warframes. He's absolutely amazing. He's a ton of fun, he's pretty tanky, he has a lot of damage. He's just so good. And if I were to start the game all over again and I would have to choose my starter Warframe, I'm sorry, Mag, Loki, or Vault, or whatever the starting Warframes are nowadays, I would choose Excalibur over you any day. I'm sorry, but I would. He's a lovely Warframe. I'm a big fan of tanky Warframes, and he is tanky. He has a really fun toolkit. He has his own stance. He's very unique. Just go and get him if you don't have him already. I don't know what else there is to say. I really don't know. Just go and get Excalibur. You will not regret it, okay? And that's basically it for the video. So I thank you very much for watching, as always, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.